Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Creating Success with Nidal Rasheed. And today I'm joined by a special guest, Todd Sloan. Now, Todd is a man of many skills. He's a real estate agent. He's a property professional here in South Australia. Specializes in all sorts of properties, from first home buyers all the way through to investors and developers. He's also a renovator and an investor himself. He's a property expert in many ways. He's the author and publisher of many of the videos that you see out there for Pizza and Property, which we'll talk about in this interview. And it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Todd. So Todd, thank you for jumping on board.
Yeah, Nidal, thanks for having me, mate. Really, love being here.
Yeah, always great to chat. Now, Todd, I always like to open up just to find out a little bit more about our guests and find out the backstory of where you've come from and how you've ended up doing what you're doing. Can you tell us a little bit about the backstory and how you ended up being an agent?
Yeah, absolutely. There's probably a little bit of a different one. I actually started as a diamond driller underground in my early 20s. And I basically started chasing the money because I was trying to produce a TV show at the time. And no one would fund it because I was a 19-year-old kid with stars in his eyes. And I remember the first books that I actually bought up to me to camp when I started going fly in and fly out work. Because I promised myself I wasn't going to waste it all on beer, like unfortunately a few of the blokes up there do. It was actually a Steve McKnight book. I think it was 0 to 260 properties in 7 years.
Yep.
Then all the rest of the classics followed, the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, all the rest of it, and just really started getting obsessed with real estate. But I actually had an accident on a drill rig, actually shortly after I bought my very first investment property, which was the stereotypical terrible investment, as most people, I think, do. They don't make the wisest choice the first time round. It was an apartment in the city in Adelaide, and so I had an accident. I couldn't walk properly for actually almost, I think it was over 4 years. Had all kinds of issues after that. I wasn't allowed to go back to drilling. But then when I went back into the workforce, started walking properly again, I actually did a big charity walk from Adelaide to Melbourne. And that was actually a really big thing in helping with determination and really getting my life back on track. I'm a bit of an extremist. Like if I'm going to do something, I'm all in. I'd be a terrible poker player because it would always be all in. Then after that, I got into the sales side of thing, and that's almost 6 years ago now, and just haven't looked back. Absolutely love it.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So you've obviously done a few things before you ended up in property, and over the time you probably have experienced different ways, different industries, all of that. But now that you're in property, you're obviously helping people achieve a certain result. Can you tell us a little bit more about why people engage you, and what do people get when they engage your service?
So as a sales agent, mainly it's around getting things ready for sale. So because I'll sit down with someone, and what I really love and what I really like to specialize in is when people are renovating a home or they're getting it ready for sale. Maybe it's not in the best of conditions to begin with, and they're wanting to sort of take it from here to here. My job though is to make sure that anything that's spent, you don't want to just spend here to get here, because then there's no point. We may as well just sell it where it is here. And really walk them down all the different pathways of, look, if you do the bathroom, do the kitchen, how are you actually going to control that budget and make sure that you're actually getting that return on investment? Because one of my biggest things is that pretty isn't profit. I say this all the time, and it's so true. People watch shows like The Block and they get excited, and then I sit down with them and say, look, great, we can do all of this, but if we spend this 50,000, it's probably just going to add 50,000. So it's really about putting a plan together with people and helping them understand what's the best way to actually get that return, instead of just making things look pretty, because pretty isn't profit.
Absolutely.
And
you're obviously talking from experience, because I've seen that you've done quite a few renovation projects so far. You've even done some videos which I've watched, and I think they're great. Can you tell us a little bit about some of the projects you've done?
Yeah, absolutely. So after I made my, let's just call it, first investment that wasn't the best, I sold that because I realized that I couldn't do anything to it. And to me, it's just, I wanted to get my hands dirty. I wanted to add value, sweat equity, a lot of investors call it. Mm-hmm. And it was an apartment, it was actually in the Oaks Embassy on North Terrace. And it was just, there was no chance for that. So I sold that myself. And then I actually put my money into, it was actually a regional development. And I know a lot of people were saying I was crazy for doing it, but it's made reasonable money. And I knew going in, this was never going to be something that was going to triple, quadruple in value. But the reason I got it was because it was $62,500 for a 3-bed, 2-bath. Ended up getting water connected, sewer connected, putting the whole deal together, and then got it revalued actually just recently again for $150,000. So I think I spent about 30 on it. So it's not huge profits, but the thing that made me feel really safe with it is because at that stage it was at first one. I kind of had an idea of what I was doing, but hadn't done it firsthand. I'd had a lot of involvement in other people's projects over the years. But if everything went belly up, worst case scenario, my mortgage repayments were something like $40 a week. I didn't care. Like it was, whereas I unfortunately had a front row seat to a lot of people that had made some big mistakes in real estate, and they had very, very high overheads, and it didn't take them long to go backwards quickly. And again, not saying that that's the right way or my way is the right way, but for me, I wanted to make sure that I had more than enough buffer that I could learn things myself along the way. I'm a slow learner. I'm dyslexic. So it takes me a while to get things, but once I get them, I hold on to them and then I improve them. I'm creative that way. So yeah, taking it back to the simplest form and the cheapest form and the most risk-free form was really what I was after in that sense. Awesome. And then I've just built on it from there. So I've done several other projects since that one, and yeah, enjoyed all of them. Good fun.
Nice. And once you've got the recipe, so once you know how something works or how to bake the cake, it's easy to replicate that again. And a lot of the times people struggle with the idea of making that first move or taking that leap or, taking that risk. But what they don't realize is that there's a bigger risk with not taking risks, because if you don't do that first one and go through the process and learn from it, even if you did make some mistakes, those mistakes are still going to be less expensive than having to go and try and do a course on it or do a uni degree or whatever it is. The School of Hard Knocks actually teaches you a lot more, a lot quicker, and a lot cheaper in some cases than trying to go out there and do it in the traditional sense, so to speak. So hats off to you for that. And I understand that a lot of people actually come to you because of your expertise in doing renovation. So you probably deal with a lot of people who are trying to sell their homes and add value to it. And I'm sure you come across people that try and do everything themselves rather than find professionals in the area. I always ask the question, why should someone use you as opposed to try and do it on their own?
Yeah, good question. It took me a while to actually be a sales agent because I had pretty negative experiences in the past with them, as I'm sure a few people have out there as well. And I was saying this actually just to a colleague the other day, is as a sales agent, we seem to have a lot of social influence, but no social standing. It's like everyone wants their opinion, but then sometimes when we say it, it's kind of like, oh, brushed off to the side. You're just lying. You're a real estate agent. And I remember I had that hurdle to actually overcome myself mentally when I got into the game. And now I've really found that one of the things that I like to provide that's different is transparency, because I felt that I didn't get that. And not saying I'm the only agent that doesn't that offers transparency, but for me, it's about really saying that this is really what's happening here. And it's not just about saying all the glitz and glam and the wonderful things and going in and it's called buying a listing or industry, just telling someone what they want to hear. It's really about walking in and just actually giving someone value, finding out where they are currently, where they want to be, but then drawing that roadmap of how they want to get there. But one of the most important things in that sort of 3-step process there is the fourth thing is, are you willing to do what it takes to actually get there? Because it's all well and good to go, hey, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. Okay, great, here's what you got to do. And then they sit back and go, I don't want to do that. It's like, well, here's what you got to do is now rendered useless. So you've got to make sure that it actually fits the person. So it's like touching on what you were saying about the education side. Definitely not anti like education, doing courses, very pro, but personally I'd learn more School of Hard Knocks, getting things done myself.
There comes a point in time where you got to back it up with action. And if all you do is just study, but never actually implement or execute, then everything that you learn is just a really good idea.
Yeah. And you end up getting into that whole paralysis by analysis thing. Like, I fell into that years ago. I should have brought some American property around the GFC, and I was like Mr. Florida expert for a while. I never did it, never put the trigger on it. And looking at it now, would have done quite well out of it, but I just never actually implemented it. So like, yeah, the knowledge without implementation is not knowledge, it's nothing.
No, absolutely. Now, I understand that apart from sales and reno, you actually put your time into a lot of education, as well as, seeking, advice and expertise from some of the best investors in the country. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you do with property and pizza, or pizza and property?
That's the one. Yeah, yeah. It's Pizza and Property. So it's actually a podcast that I co-host with my co-host Jack Gibson. He's a property valuer, awesome at what he does. And we actually we created this because we wanted to offer something actually very much like what you're doing. It's something it's valuable. It's interviewing people that really come from their own unique perspective and have something to give of value. But it's also done in a way that it's not. I don't want to come across like I'm being rude about other like podcasts, but some of them can be a little bit dry. So we wanted to have more of an almost a Top Gear approach. And what we've been discussing lately is maybe even introducing a little bit more of that, because you don't want to just be too silly with it, because otherwise we're not a comedy show, but you also don't want to be just too facts and figures, because otherwise it's like watching, like, I personally love the RP data reports. Like when he talks, I love it. Okay. But I couldn't put that in front of like my mum and dad, because they wouldn't nerd out on the data the way that I would. Okay, so we want to take that same kind of information, that same kind of knowledge, and we want to give it in a way that people can actually maybe engage with it. So hence the name Pizza and Property. We named it after our two favorite things in the world, pizza and property.
Nice.
And the pizza side of it is just to add a little bit of fun to it, because this really can be fun. And I think it's just the way the message is received. So we interview different professionals every week. And we actually just last week had Nathan Birch on the show, which was awesome. That guy owns something like 240 houses. So being able to have access to people like that has just been incredible for Jack and I learning. And that's me being selfish right now, but then being able to share it with everyone has just been a phenomenal feeling when we get feedback. I mean, you'd be getting the same for this, man. You must be getting messages.
All it is a platform to share knowledge with others, because at the moment we live in an information age, and people are hungry for information, and information is readily accessible, but it's about creating that platform that people can resonate with, and like you said, you want to carve out your own niche in that space. And so are we. Like we like to take that casual, let's just have a chat in front of a camera and let's let some golden nuggets out, and let people get some free value. And then hopefully if they resonate with not just the message, but with us as people, then they, might want to reach out and start a conversation. And that's how business works these days. It's all about reciprocity and sort of putting the value out. And, you do good comes back. That's my belief in business. And, you put value out there and somehow it'll find its way back to you, type thing.
Yeah.
So look, hats off to you guys. I know it's a great show. I listen to it regularly, and I'll include a link to Pizza and Property podcast in the video below as well. So if you guys are watching and want to jump onto that, I'll put a link down in the comment section. So
I actually think our first guest, Nidal. I think you might have been.
Possibly. It was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago now. But just thinking about that, I reckon you were actually guest number one.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the cartoon for the first time. That was pretty cool.
I was like, when we got set that animation back, I'm like, this actually kind of looks like him. This is cool.
I cracked up laughing when I first saw it. Now, look, again, you guys invest a lot of time and effort and energy into not only educating yourself, but educating others. And along that journey, you've obviously, culminated a whole bunch of golden nuggets from around the country, like from, some of the best of the best. And, from what you've learned over the years, if you were to boil that down and give that to someone who's about to start on their own property investment journey, obviously understanding that your investment journey might be different from someone else's, because, you focus more on renos and things like that. What advice would you have for someone who's just starting out?
Yeah, good question, actually. The biggest thing I think is finding what really resonates with you for where you want to go. Because that's something that I've quite often looked at, is like renovation works for me for several reasons, because I've got a reasonable risk profile. Like I actually like getting hands-on. I'm relatively organized when it comes to organizing trades as well. Could improve on that a little bit, but otherwise pretty good at it. And it fits my personality type and what I'm trying to achieve. But if it doesn't fit you, probably don't do it, because it can go backwards. So it's about really finding, I think, what fits with you. the stories that I told beforehand about the people that lost a lot of money, it's because they were really, I suppose they were dabbling in areas that maybe they shouldn't have, because they were either sold into it or they were just convinced by someone that it was the best thing out since sliced bread. So like, yeah, there's a few things that I probably wouldn't do, but renovating just works for me. So I think the biggest thing I say is, again, going back to where are you, where you want to be, but it's the thing in between, is really finding out what actually sits right with you as far as strategies are concerned. Because if you pick the wrong one, you can end up going backwards quite quickly.
I 100% agree. And that is brilliant advice, is do what suits you, because there's different strategies out there. There's more than one way to be right. And that's the good news for people who are listening, because some people are caught up in this space of, do I go for positive cash flow? Do I go for high growth? Do I do developments? Do I do renos? Do I do options? Do I do room? And there's so many ways you can go with it, but you've got to work out what suits your style, because some people are terrible at renovation and they're probably better off just letting their money do the work rather than them do the work. So find out. Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that one, because it's, once you work out what your style is, then you're going to be more effective, and you're probably going to get better success by doing what you enjoy and what you love. Because when the challenges set in and the obstacles come up, if you don't have that inner drive and that inner fuel to keep you going through the challenges, you're going to give up and, retreat and go back to the comfort zone. Whereas, yeah, if you're doing something that resonates with you, I think you'll be a lot more effective with that. So yeah, on point with that. Now that leads me into my next question, because, obviously there's a lot of mistakes out there that people can be making, and, I'm sure you've come across a lot of them. What are some of the mistakes that you would advise people to watch out for, or to be vigilant of?
Okay. Careful if you're going to go on partnership, and I can even speak from my own personal experience, going into partnership with a partner can come with its own sort of downfalls. Unfortunately, I did that in a relationship. Relationship didn't work out. So that you're actually going into business together, don't care how much you love each other. If you're going to do a project together, make sure that you actually have a solid business plan. Otherwise, when emotion starts kicking in, it can cost you both quite dearly. So, and I've seen that firsthand and experienced that one firsthand. So yeah, make sure you understand you're going into business together when you do it. The other thing probably would come back to actually knowing what you're trying to achieve. And then again, we're just going to keep referencing this, because one of the things I see quite a lot as a sales agent, this is investor hat off, sales agent hat on. Okay, so I'm going to walk into one of my opens and they'll say, oh, I'm looking for an investment property. I say, okay, brilliant. What are you looking for in investment? My favorite question to ask. Okay, what are you looking for in investment? I'm talking to someone that really understands investment. They'll say, oh, I'm looking for this kind of yield. I want to make sure I'm a high growth area, or we're in a corridor where it's going to start expanding through any kind of gentrification, whatever it is, right? I'm like, okay, I'm talking with someone that knows what's going on. When I say, what are you looking for in investment? And they say, oh, well, it's got to have really nice bench tops, or, ducted air conditioning is really important. I really want to make sure it has ducted air conditioning. And I'm just thinking, like, please stop. You're going to cost yourself a lot of money, or you're going to get lucky. But you may as well go to the casino and just throw it all on black, because you don't know what you're doing. And I don't obviously say this, but with all due respect, educate yourself, or get someone in your corner that does really know what they're doing. Because otherwise, I've sold investment properties for people before that have actually lost money over a decade. I'm talking a decade, Nidal, right? They've bought it for $200,000, and then they've sold it. And the best, comp sales were like 180, 190. So we were lucky to actually get them their money back of $200,000. That was actually a good result as far as the situation was concerned. But it's because they bought with here. They didn't buy with here. And I think if people are going to start off on this investment journey, realize you're talking about hundreds of thousands, or if not millions of dollars. You use here, not here. Here's for everything else. That's for the fun stuff. This is for the finance side of things. So I suppose recapping, biggest mistake is too many emotional decisions. Yep. That's really what I think I'd cap that as.
I love that one, because I always tell our clients and some students that we work with is that the more emotions you invest, the less money you make. An investment should be something purely logical. It's facts and figures and numbers. If it adds up, go for it. If it doesn't, then, run the other way.
A good one. Damien Simic, we interviewed him. He's in his 30s. He's just finished his first $80 million building. good, really knowledgeable dude. And something he said to me that really stuck out is, don't ever fall in love with the deal because it'll never love you back.
Yeah.
I liked that
I
because
love that.
it's totally true. Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome.
Mm.
So you know what, that actually flows really well because again, you've worked with some very successful people along the years, and you know you've interviewed some, and you know you've rubbed shoulders with some pretty high net wealth individuals who are winning in this space. Um, and I'm sure you've seen patterns amongst the people who are successful at doing this. In your opinion, what are the patterns of the successful investors and people who are winning in this game?
Consistency is probably the biggest one.
Mhm.
Is people that do really well out of this consistently do it. They don't just have a win. It's like in sales, you're only as good as your last sale. I don't care what you did 2 years ago. If you just always talk about the amazing deal that happened, it's the same thing. Is just consistently put your money away.
Mhm.
And it's probably like the compound effect, really. It's actually called the compound effect. And then it talks about exactly this. Success is really made up of a lot of these small, unsexy decisions that are done over a very long period of time. And making sure that these things continuously happen is what's actually going to give you that exponential growth later on. But people don't really realize that because it takes such a long time to actually get to here. And most of the really high net worth people that I have actually been fortunate enough to chat with and get to know and actually become friends with in some cases have all really started from just making lots of smart, simple decisions consistently. That's probably, yeah, the number one. I mean, there's lots of things, but that'd be the number one standout.
Well, consistency is obviously the benchmark or the level that we hold ourselves to on an ongoing basis. So if you're, you know, consistently doing like those small actions that you just spoke about, you know, spending less than what you make and investing the difference, having good money habits, making sure that you do those little unsexy things and you do it, you know, regularly, it does have a big compound effect because, you know, at the end of your life, when you look back, it's not the big steps that you took. It's usually the habits and the actions that got you to where you are, you know? So
Yeah,
that's actually,
absolutely.
no, that's a good one. So in terms of, you know, obviously you've come across a lot of success and people who are doing, you know, quite well. In again, I always like to extract as much value for our listeners and our viewers. And one of my favorite questions is, what's your golden nugget? You know, like what's the one golden nugget that you can share with others that's changed your career and enable you to achieve your own personal success, whether it's in your career, your investing, etc.
Um, Persistence is the big one that's just floating around my head. No doesn't always mean no in this game. No usually means like, I either don't know the answer to the question, so I'm going to say no to you because it's easier. And if, as long as you obviously have to be respectful under this circumstance, but as long as you can keep digging and keep persisting at things, I really think that's probably the biggest thing. Like I've learned that out of real estate. So I learned that with the walk was one of the things that I continued to be persistent with. I remember actually, quick story on that. I was walking between, I think it was Keith and Caniva, right? Two towns in outback, well not outback, you know, country Victoria, and my knee really started to hurt. And so I remember putting a little tweet on my page, tweet on the page. I sound like my dad now, tweeting on the Facebooks, putting a status up on Facebook, right? And saying, if anyone's driving from Adelaide to Melbourne right now, can you actually drop off a knee brace? Because all the shops were shut. It was a Sunday. They weren't open. And so someone, lucky enough, they were driving back from Ballarat and they dropped it off, and I put this knee brace on all day. Turns out you're not supposed to wear them all day, right? Trying to long story short this as much as I can, I actually gave myself what's called acute compartment syndrome in my calf. It's insane amounts of pain, all right? I couldn't walk properly. So we hobbled into the doctors. He sent me up to Nil straight away. Got all the scans back, and he's just like, mate, you've got to stop. And I was all like, yeah, cool. Thanks for your opinion there, champ. I'm going to keep walking. He's like, no, seriously, you need to stop. If you don't stop now, then we're going to have to actually do, like, I won't get too graphic for you guys, but they need to make incisions down your calf to actually release the pressure. Okay. I'm all right, he's starting to get my attention here, but I'm like, I'm still going to keep going. He's like, okay, Todd, just to really put this in perspective, mate, if you walk for another 2 or 3 days on this leg the way that it is, we're going to have to take your foot. He had my attention at that stage because I thought, I like both of my feet. This is like we come as a pair. Okay. It's not a one size. And so I said, look, well, I've got to get there, because I was almost halfway there, and we hadn't even reached the goal of what we're going to raise. I wanted to raise over 10 grand. I think we'd raised like 4 grand at that stage. This is for canteens, so children or kids living with cancer. And I kept just like throwing out all these ideas, like, well, what if I hopped? What if I crawled? What if I? And finally we got this idea of, what if we actually got a bike and I could pedal with one leg, right? And then leave the other leg just off to the side. And I could just do that for like a day or 2 days. And I'll leave this one to rest. He's like, look, I'm not recommending this. You should probably not do this. But if you're that determined, which I can see you are, this is the best of a bad bunch. So if that's what you're going to do, you don't have my blessing as such, but pick that option. And so I did. And I rode from, what was it, Conniva to Neil, the next checkpoint the next day. I only did it for 2 days. And then all of a sudden it was back to walking again. And I think I tell that story because, I mean, that's a ridiculous life experience that probably not many people are ever going to have. Okay. But that's something that you take that and you store that away for when things are getting hard. Everyone's got their own struggle that they've gone through, and it can be something that you even think is little, or it can be something really huge. But if you can then tap into that and know what kind of a person you are, next time things get hard and it gets too difficult, reach back there and go like, no, I'm actually better than this. Like I've got through worse than this before. And I think that's a really important thing. So I don't really know if that's a golden nugget or so, but I think that's what I would attribute a lot of what's got me to where I am and what's going to get me to where I'm going to, is just never giving up, persevere no matter what.
Well, resilience and persistence is usually in the top 3 habits of some of the most successful people in the world. Like whenever anyone's done any kind of interview or, research or like a biography or anything like that on anyone who's successful in any way, shape or form, usually the persistence and the resilience is generally what comes up all the time. And they say success is falling down 10 times and, getting up 9 or 10 of them. So, so it's just it's not about falling, but it's just keep going in, you can't keep someone who is that persistent down forever. So you might knock them down a little bit, but they're just going to get up, dust themselves off and keep walking, and then get knocked down again, get back up and keep walking. And I think what happens over time is you start building up those muscles of resilience to be able to handle even bigger challenges and bigger setbacks and bigger obstacles and hurdles. And that's life, because what we can deal with now is a lot more than what we used to be able to deal with when we were kids. But because we had to fall over a few times, it's like, how many times would you give the average baby to learn how to walk before you say, no, you know what, walking's not for you?
I love this question. Yeah.
Yeah?
You just would, you keep helping them and guiding them until they got there. Yeah.
100%. So that's what it's all about. And that's life. And that's, one thing equals everything. So how you do certain things in one area of your life reflect on others. And especially when it comes to investing in property and buying and selling and all that, it's not something that you do once and that's it, you're done. It's something you continuously do, through the good times and the bad times. So, I 100% agree. I think persistence is a huge golden nugget, especially in today's world where we live in a society where people just give up too easily. I think that's a skill set that we all need to be honing in on and developing over the years,
Yeah. Cool.
So, Todd, I know we can talk forever, right? And it's actually a pleasure having a chat with someone who operates on the same level. If someone wants to reach out and work with you directly, how can they find you? How can they get in contact with you?
Either just phone, send me a text if you want to put my number in the show notes. Otherwise, info@pizzaandproperty.com. That's probably one of the easiest ways. Always checking that one. That's probably about it.
All right, awesome. And as a result of someone watching this interview, what action would you encourage someone to take as a result of whether it's this show or yours or any other?
Understand who you are and where you want to go. Biggest thing, because otherwise we float around just seeing other pretty things and other achievements that other people have done. And until you really know what you want to do and who you are and where you want to go, they all sound alluring. Like I watch a movie where someone's a fighter pilot, and all of a sudden I want to take flying lessons. Like it's not actually I did take flying lessons for a while, but it's not really who I am. It's not what I want to do. But if you can understand who you are and where you really want to go, you can get to work. You can focus on it and you can achieve it. Like anything possible if you really set your mind to it. That sounds way too cliche, but I mean, it's true. It really is.
But a great way to finish up for sure. Look, Todd, as always, it's an absolute pleasure to, chat with you. And, I encourage anyone who's listening to this and watching this, reach out to Todd, even if it's just for a general chat. If you're thinking about selling or thinking about, doing a project or a renovation and just need some expert opinion or advice, I know he's happy to give, as much of his time as he can to help people along the way. And, I highly recommend, and I do, recommend and refer Todd to my clients. And I'd encourage you guys to reach out as well. As always, thank you again, Todd. It's, always great to chat. And I hope our viewers, get some good value out of this. Is there anything you'd like to add to wrap up?
I think that's about it. I think the only thing is if you do want to reach out, the only thing I will ask is please reach out as soon as possible in the project, not at the end of it, because I do get some people and then ask for all of my opinions once it's done, and it's kind of like it's done, like you've done it, and then maybe great job or whatever. But yeah, if you're thinking about doing it, I'll quite happily sit down, have a coffee with you, and just walk you through all of the ins and outs and give you as much advice and help as I can. So yeah, happy to.
Yeah. Sooner you do it, the less painful it is on the back end.
Absolutely.
So, awesome.
Was that a double entendre?
Sorry?
Was that a double entendre? The less painful it is on the back end, like the back end of the project, and then your back end?
Back end of the project. That's exactly what I meant. On that note, thank you very much, everyone. I hope you guys got some value and having a great day wherever you are. And until the next video, see you next time.